Al-Hilal want to sign Arsenal target Benjamin Sesko, and they want to get a deal done today. We're going to have the full story for you.
Victor Gyökeres has been a target of Arsenal, but he's now wanted by another Premier League team. We'll bring you all you need to know on that shortly.
Good morning. Great to have you with us as we count down to the closing of the first transfer window of the summer.
Oh, there's less than 10 hours now, Bella. It's all a little bit different this year due to the Club World Cup. It is a bit confusing. We understand that. We will explain all shortly.
Now, will Manchester City sign Ryan Cherki before tonight's deadline? We'll be live to the Etihad shortly.
And we'll also be live to Chelsea as they aim to beat the deadline to sign Jamie Gittins. Stay with us for the latest.
Well, strikers are always in demand in the transfer windows, aren't they? And Benjamin Sesko and Victor Gyökeres are both targets for Premier League clubs.
How much of a worry is this for Arsenal fans, though? Saudi Pro League club Al-Hilal are interested in signing Sesko from RB Leipzig.
Yeah, so Sesko's been a long-term target for Arsenal, but they're now facing this competition from Al-Hilal, who want to sign a striker today. It needs to be today in time to be for the Club World Cup. Our reporter Mark McAdam joins us ahead of this one. We'll get into Gyökeres in a moment, but first, how serious is Al-Hilal's interest in Sesko?
Yeah, very serious. We know that they're in the market to make marquee signings ahead of the Club World Cup. We know that they tried to get Bruno Fernandes, the Manchester United captain, but he declined that opportunity. They signed Simone Inzaghi as head coach, the man that took Inter Milan to the Champions League final. It could have been so different. He could have been lifting the European trophy. However, he's now at Al-Hilal and they're in the market to make big signings and they're running out of time to do it. So this is where it becomes really interesting. When Arsenal think they've got a reasonably clear run at the striker, suddenly they've got competition, and the competition in Al-Hilal want to get the deal done as quickly as possible. So what do we know? We know that Arsenal have been big fans of Benjamin Sesko for some time. They've been watching his development over the course of the last few years through the Red Bull group. He's only 22 years old. Different profile to Victor Gyökeres, who we'll get onto into a minute. Sky in Germany spoke to us about a formal approach from Arsenal at the back end of last week and over the course of the weekend. So Arsenal and RB Leipzig now in dialogue with regards to Benjamin Sesko. Arsenal just exploring the deal, trying to understand the mechanics of it financially, what it means for them, what it's going to cost them, whether Sesko would be interested in joining Arsenal and coming to the Premier League. There's been no formal bid at this stage. However, the guide price for a player of his quality is where there may or may not be a stumbling block. Now, RB Leipzig are saying, well, if you want a top quality striker at the moment, you look at Hugo Ekitike. He's 100 million. Alexander Isak, 130 million. So our man, you know, he's going to be a similar value. We're not going to let him go on the cheap. And that's where Arsenal are going to have to get creative with regards to what they pay. Now, we know that Victor Osimhen was an Al-Hilal target earlier on in the summer. But our sources, Sky in Italy, are saying he's declined that opportunity. He's not interested in going to Al-Hilal. So that's where suddenly they've now turned their attentions to Benjamin Sesko. One to keep an eye on. It could be a very dramatic day for Arsenal fans. So that's the latest with that one. But I want to be positive. I want to give Arsenal fans a little bit of a hope because Florian Plettenberg has been across this story for Sky in Germany. This is what he had to say on Sunday when we asked about Sesko's potential move to Arsenal.
RB Leipzig very open to sell him. It's a very good atmosphere, positive atmosphere. The player is very respectful towards all the parties involved. I'm totally convinced that Sesko will play for Arsenal in the next season.
Right, well, that is Sesko. How about Victor Gyökeres then? He has been linked with Arsenal. He has been named as a target, but another Premier League club want him as well.
Yes, Manchester United very much in the market to rebuild, rebrand and re-sign some new faces for their front three. This is going to be a huge development project for Ruben Amorim, and you get the feeling off the back of the way that Manchester United finished last season that he needs to get this summer right. They need to get the right type of players in. They need to hit the ground running. They'd certainly be getting a goal scorer in Victor Gyökeres. 49 goals in all competitions for Sporting Lisbon last season. No question about his ability. I loved watching him play in the Championship for Coventry. Had a little spell at Brighton and Hove Albion when he was younger as well. We know how good their recruitment is. Manchester United have approached Sporting Lisbon through intermediaries over the course of the weekend. Ruben Amorim actually signed Victor Gyökeres for Sporting a couple of summers ago, so he knows all about the striker, knows all about his qualities. He's been a goal machine since arriving in Portugal. Now, one of the interesting things is that initial deal that took him from Coventry to Sporting included a €100 million release clause, which as of yet, obviously no one has been willing to pay. However, we understand there's a gentleman's agreement between the player and Sporting Lisbon over a potential bit of leeway on that.
Yeah, we love a gentleman's agreement.
We understand that £58 million could potentially, with some add-ons, get the deal done. But also, it's important to point out that Victor Gyökeres is not the only player that Manchester United are looking at. And also, we know that there are other clubs looking at Victor Gyökeres as well. And someone is going to remain disappointed. So, for example, if Sesko goes to Al-Hilal and Gyökeres goes to Manchester United, where does that leave Arsenal? And that's what makes today so interesting.
Yeah.
This deadline makes it really, really fascinating. Thank you very much, Mark. More from Mark in a moment. As we know, the summer transfer window looks a little bit different this year. Here is how it all works. Just keep your eye on these graphics. The window closes tonight at 7 p.m. ahead of the Club World Cup, which starts on Saturday. The window then reopens on June the 16th and it shuts on September the 1st. As for those teams at the Club World Cup, there is an in-tournament registration period from June the 27th to July the 3rd. So if they're unable to complete deals by 7 p.m. tonight, they can do so for the knockout stages. But if they don't do it by 7 p.m. tonight, those players won't be able to play in the group stage of the Club World Cup. Despite the window shutting tonight, clubs can still announce deals. They just can't register them until the window opens again.
Well, two clubs that we're going to be focusing on a lot between now and that 7 o'clock deadline due to their participation in the Club World Cup are Chelsea and Manchester City.
James Savundra is at Chelsea for us. We'll speak to him in just a mo. But first, let's get to Sunny Rudravajula, who is outside the Etihad. Morning again, Sunny. City have been so busy, haven't they, given that they've got this Club World Cup on the horizon. One is through the door. Are there two more that are getting closer?
Well, yeah, they've got the time for the window is ticking, isn't it? And City today, this morning, announced they've got a new shirt, actually, for the Club World Cup. Could they have those two new faces joining Ryan Ait-Nouri? Well, Tijani Reinders from AC Milan was a deal there agreed, just over £46 million. And that was agreed last week, but we're yet to see that confirmation come through. Central midfielder, Dutch international, 10 goals for AC Milan in a side that struggled in Serie A. They finished 10th last season, really good at going forward, so that would be a very big positive move for City to bring him in and have some more bodies through the door before the group stage begins. The other one they're looking at as well, Rayan Cherki, wide man, right winger for Lyon, can play on the other flank as well. Set up 20 goals across Ligue 1 and the Europa League this season. Made his debut for France last week as well, scored and set up another goal there in a 5-4 defeat against Spain. So he's been impressive for club and now for country as well. So that's two that City are monitoring. The one that they've got through the door yesterday, Ryan Ait-Nouri, left wing back. We've seen him loads for Wolves over the last few years. Been so positive with the ball, and it means that Josko Vardiol can move back to centre half. Nico Riley could go into midfield. But those deals, those two for Reinders and Cherki, yet to be announced before this 7 o'clock deadline. If they don't do it by then, as you mentioned earlier, they cannot play in the group stage of the Club World Cup, which kicks off in 8 days. So time is ticking for Pep Guardiola and his City side to get these players through the door.
Big day ahead for City. Thank you, Sunny.
OK, let's get to Chelsea then. James Savundra is outside Stamford Bridge for us. James, Chelsea have been trying to get deals over the line for AC Milan goalkeeper Mike Maignan and Borussia Dortmund winger Jamie Gittens. Are they any closer ahead of the deadline tonight?
Hi there, Bello. Good morning. Chelsea with plenty of work to do, you feel, to get these two signings over the line before 7 o'clock this evening. Let's start with Jamie Gittens. He's desperate to join Chelsea. We understand a verbal agreement has been reached when it comes to personal terms, but Borussia Dortmund looking for between 42 and 50 million pounds to sell him in this transfer window. Chelsea below that right now. It feels like there's a gap in where the two sides are when it comes to valuation. Chelsea want to sign him ideally by this deadline this evening at 7 o'clock because they are really lacking left-wing options heading into the Club World Cup. Jadon Sancho has gone back to Manchester United. Mykhailo Mudryk, he's currently out suspended, so there aren't many options there right now. Raheem Sterling has come back from Arsenal. It's unlikely he's going to be part of that Club World Cup squad. But with that in mind, this is a player they've been admiring for a long period of time. So if this doesn't get done by 7 o'clock this evening, then maybe it's one they explore later on in the summer. But the player is keen to join Chelsea. When it comes to Mike Maignan, a slightly different deal is I think Chelsea may be prepared to walk away if they can't get this deal done this evening. AC Milan and Chelsea in talks throughout the day yesterday. Now, Maignan, arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now. He's the France #1, but he's only got 1 year left on his contract. He turns 30 later on this summer, and Chelsea aren't willing to overpay because of those two factors. We understand they want to pay a maximum of around £12.6 million to sign him in this transfer window. AC Milan previously looking for around £25 million. So there clearly is a gap between what both clubs want right now, but what Mike Maignan wants is to join Chelsea in time to be part of their team at the Club World Cup. Chelsea's first game against Los Angeles FC next week. Mike Maignan may be their goalkeeper, but there's plenty of work to be done between now and 7 o'clock for that to be the case. Both players, Gittens and Maignan, they want to join Chelsea. They want to be part of that Club World Cup squad, but time is running out for Chelsea to thrash out deals with Borussia Dortmund and AC Milan to get these deals done. Personal terms, they're not expected to be a problem, but can Chelsea find the right numbers to get these players over the line so these two new players can join Liam Delap on that plane to America early next week?
Thanks, James.
Right, we've got you covered until 10 a.m. Then Transfer Centre returns at 1 p.m. and again at 4 for more on the first deadline day of the summer. Then we've got a special transfer window countdown show for you from 5 p.m. until the deadline at 7 p.m. Kaveh Solokol and Damesh Shef will be joined by the former West Ham striker Dean Ashton. And you won't want to miss the transfer show at 7 p.m. either. We will go through all of those last-minute deals and reflect on all of the big deadline day stories.
Yeah, plenty going on. And we've been talking about the Club World Cup's impact on the transfer window. Well, England head coach Thomas Tuchel thinks that it could be a factor in next season's Premier League title race.
Manchester City and Chelsea will spend the next month competing in the tournament in the USA, while Liverpool and Arsenal will not. And Tuchel thinks that could be decisive.
This is what Tuchel has said. I think it will have a huge impact and it will give Liverpool and Arsenal a huge advantage in the next season to not be there. I think it will be a very nice experience for the players who are there to play this tournament for the first time, so it is mixed feelings about it. He went on to say, the games are not the problem, it's just the amount of time it occupies with the players, and they need some rest in this calendar, which they hardly get.
We're in an era now where we've never discussed the calendar as much, where sports science, because of that calendar, has become so important. I think one of the reasons that Liverpool won the title was basically because they kept their two best players, Van Dijk and Salah, on the pitch as much as possible in the way their main rivals couldn't.
Chelsea and Manchester City could be there till mid-July. The season, of course, starts in mid-August. And those City and Chelsea players, of course, are going to need a proper holiday. Some of the players have had a week or so, but then they're going to have a sort of a super quick pre-season.
It just distorts all of the clubs' usual expectations and planning for pre-season training. So now suddenly some clubs almost have to see the Club World Cup as their pre-season and then give their players a break.
Until a year ago, Liverpool were actually going to be invited to the Club World Cup, but sort of FIFA changed the goalposts, or moved the goalposts rather, which they've been doing quite a lot, and decided that they didn't want more than two former winners. So that is why Liverpool weren't there. And now I would have thought most Liverpool fans, and certainly Arne Slot, are pretty relieved.
Now, let's get to the latest on Tottenham Hotspur's hunt for a new manager. Spurs have opened talks with Brentford for Thomas Frank to replace Ange Postecoglou.
And Frank is the only candidate that the club are looking at. There are currently no second or third choice options.
Discussions between the two clubs are taking place over a compensation package. Frank has a release clause in his contract, which has 2 years left to run and is reported to be around £10 million. He is interested in taking the Spurs job and wants to speak to the club, while Brentford will not stand in his way if they get the right money. Frank is already known to Spurs technical director Johan Lange as they worked with each other in Denmark.
When you look at some of Brentford's football, is that suitable for Spurs? Can he play more expansive football or change style? As well as that, the challenge of jumping up to a more intense environment. I don't think any of that will be an issue. First of all, actually, Frank has shown a really impressive adaptability throughout his time at Brentford. I think he's played at least 3 different styles of football while he's been at the club. Different approaches to keep them in the Championship, to get them up from the Championship, to stay up in the Premier League, to actually establish themselves in the Premier League. And as regards adapting to Spurs, the one thing that always stands out when you deal with, or when you go to Frank's press conferences, is he must be one of the most rounded managers in the league, while being, I think, a very tactically astute manager. Given that he has previously been a teacher and has this more rounded world view, it does make him the sort of figure you can discuss anything with in a press conference. And he's almost become the voice of the Premier League in that sense. And I think that's why he'd be easily able to handle the more intense pressure out of Tottenham compared to a Brentford. Now, I do think this is, I'm doing quite a sales job from here, but I think it's genuinely, it is a good appointment for Spurs.
We've got some breaking news to bring you, and it regards the Italy head coach job. We understand that Claudio Ranieri has turned down the opportunity to become Italy's new head coach. Luciano Spalletti was the previous coach. He announced his own sacking following his side's loss to Norway 3-0 in a World Cup qualifier on Friday. But it won't be Ranieri that takes over from him.
73 years old, Claudio Ranieri. Of course, his last job back at Roma. He returned to Roma for last season, a club that he knows very, very well, of course. But he has turned down the Italy job with Luciano Spalletti sacked just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, we'll bring you any developments on that as we get them. But now we're going to turn our attention to race week in F1, with Canada the destination. This morning, the 2026 race calendar's been released.
There are a few amendments in this schedule, so let's get into it, shall we? Here it is. The 24 race schedule begins in early March in Melbourne, as per usual. There's no Imola on the calendar this year. Next year, I should say. And Monaco moves back a few weeks. That'll now be in early June. There's also a second Spanish Grand Prix that's been added alongside Barcelona. The drivers will head to Madrid in mid-September, much to the delight of the Williams driver Carlos Sainz, who grew up in the Spanish capital.
During the last couple of months, I've also had a chance to have a look at the circuit. We did an event here in the inauguration to kickstart all the roadworks and all the works that need to be done. So extremely proud to be an ambassador, very proud to be some kid from Madrid that now lift up, watching all the Formula One races, and suddenly I'm gonna have the chance to drive a Formula One car around here. So it's gonna be a big moment for me.
Well, that's all in the future. As for the now, it is all about the Canadian Grand Prix. You can see every session live on Sky Sports F1. It starts on Friday at 6 p.m.
Now, will Job Bellingham be a Borussia Dortmund player by the deadline tonight, or will he still be at Sunderland? The very latest is coming out.
Welcome back to Transfer Sender. We're just going to run through a few of the deals that might be happening ahead of tonight's deadline at 7 p.m. Given that we've got the Club World Cup coming up, that's why we've got this deadline. What have you got for us, Mark?
Yeah, well, like you rightly say, today's a big day. It's deadline day for those clubs that are in the Club World Cup, which is happening in America. It starts at the back end of this week. They've got until 7 o'clock today to make additions to their squad. Now, this was essentially introduced for those teams that are playing in this competition. This mini 10-day window that we've had, which comes to an end today, was all about, can someone make a couple of big signings to really give that little bit of a gloss to the Club World Cup? You know, we thought someone may try and get Cristiano Ronaldo over there, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But there are teams like Al-Hilal that are in the market to do business today, so they're worth keeping an eye on. The teams to keep an eye on, this man, Borussia Dortmund, because we know that they are in the Club World Cup and they're getting close to signing Joe Bellingham from Sunderland. His medical is happening at the moment. We know that initial fee is £27.8 million. Of course, he's going to a club that his brother knows very well. 132 appearances, 24 goals for Jude Bellingham. He had a really successful spell there. That was the spell that earned him a Galactico place. He went from Borussia Dortmund to Real Madrid. Can the same sort of thing happen for his brother? We know that he's getting close to confirming that one. The other one that's worth keeping an eye on as well with regards to Borussia Dortmund is they've been asked to be kept in the loop for this man, Jadon Sancho, someone they know very well. Again, someone they know very well. Could they potentially sign him for a third time? Of course, he had 4 very successful seasons there before joining Manchester United in 2021 for £73 million. He had a loan spell at the back end of the 23-24 campaign as well, where he got to the Champions League final. So whenever he goes and plays for Borussia Dortmund, he always seems to go and do well. Therefore, there is interest once again from Borussia Dortmund for Jadon Sancho. We expect him to leave Manchester United this summer, but of course the money has to work for Manchester United. One to keep an eye on.
Now, this time of year, it's great having our colleagues out at Sky Germany, because they usually come up with 1 or 2 very useful lines. And what have they said to you?
Well, that's the funny thing, actually. Sides in Europe, owners in Europe are far more open with the media when it comes to transfer business. They basically tell everyone everything. So, like you say, Sky in Italy, Sky in Germany have some excellent contacts over there. And one of the stories that concerns them, another side in the Club World Cup, is the 22-year-old winger, can play on the right-hand side, can play on the left-hand side as well. He came on midway through that second half in the Champions League final for PSG, Bradley Barcola, and he is Bayern Munich's top target over the course of this summer. So that is one to keep an eye on. We also know they have a couple of other names they're interested in. Liverpool's Cody Gakpo and Brighton's Karo Mitoma. So, yeah, interesting situation there.
Could impact him.
This man, yeah, definitely could impact him. Sky in Germany is saying that Bayern Munich, he's there at Bayern Munich, joined in 2020 from Manchester City. His contract ends at the end of this month. So he can start the Club World Cup, but in theory couldn't finish it. So there is talk that Bayern Munich are willing to offer Leroy Sané a mini contract that would just take him to the end of the Club World Cup, because of course they'll be thinking, well, not only will we play in the first phase of the competition, hopefully we'll win our games, get through the group stage, and then we'll be involved later on, and we're going to need someone like Leroy Sané, 29 years old, been sensational since he went over to Munich. But yeah, a mini contract for this mini window could be on the cards. That's another one to keep an eye on.
So he could get offered a mini contract, but then his future's still up in the air. He could then sign a longer contract, or he could go somewhere else.
We know that Arsenal have flirted with him over the course of the last few transfer windows. They've been interested in him at various points. Could they reignite their interest? Could there be another Premier League side that says, actually, we'll take Leroy Sané? Or could he decide, actually, I'm going to stay in Munich if they offer me the right deal? One to keep an eye on.
Speaking of Arsenal, what's the latest on Thomas Partey?
Yeah, Arsenal fans will be intrigued as to what happens here. We know that they're looking to rebuild that midfield. We know they're looking to strengthen through the middle of the park. And, of course, with Martin Zubimendi going in from Real Sociedad, could he have Thomas Partey as a partner this season? We know that the club are still in talks with Thomas's representatives over potentially extending his deal. But there is interest from sides in Europe and the Saudi Pro League in Thomas Partey. So not guaranteed that he's going to stay at Arsenal. I think what he's doing with his representatives at the moment are just assessing the options, seeing what's out there, seeing what's available, seeing who wants me and who's prepared to offer me the right money. If not, he could stay at Arsenal. But another one, I keep saying this, keep an eye on this situation. Could be a big one for Arsenal, because signing a player that you've already got on a free transfer is so much cheaper than going and spending 20, 30, 40 million pounds to find a replacement. Spending 51 million on Martin Zubimendi, that's his release clause. But when you could get someone through the door who's not going to cost you anything, makes a massive difference to finances, and we know how important they are with regards to PSR.
Yeah, you need depth in that position as well, don't you? Thank you very much, Mark. Just a reminder, we've got a special transfer window countdown show. That's from 5 p.m. until the deadline at 7. Dharmesh Sheth will be joined by Kaveh Solokal and the former West Ham striker, Dean Ashton. So make sure you tune in then to see if a few deals get pushed over the line right at the end of the deadline.
Now, Manchester City's latest recruit, Ryan Ait-Nouri, is confident his new club can do something special at the Club World Cup.
The fullback completed his move from Wolves in time to be available for the group stage of the tournament, which begins on Saturday, and he says he can't wait to get going.
I'm very proud, and I can't wait to play with this shirt. And my family, they are very happy also, and yeah, for sure, it's a very good day today. It will be a pleasure to train with Pep Guardiola, and yeah, I can't wait. I'm come here to learn, to show also what I can do, and yeah, I will give my best.
You've also joined us in time to play at the FIFA Club World Cup. How exciting is that for you?
I can't wait. I'm very excited to play this competition. Hopefully, we'll make good things in FIFA World Cup. Yes.
It is US Open week and it will be a tough test at Oakmont.
If you're a premier ball striker, you'll be licking your chops.
Hi there, welcome back. Now, it was quite the game in Brussels as Kevin De Bruyne scored a late winner for Belgium. They beat Wales 4-3 in World Cup qualifying.
At one point, though, Wales were 3-0 down and they got it back to 3-3 before a last-minute winner for Belgium. The defeat ends Craig Bellamy's unbeaten start as the Wales boss. Will have the goals for you at 10 a.m.
Yeah, but here are the details because Wales were 3 down in a frantic first half as Romelu Lukaku, Yuri Tielemans and Jeremy Doku all scored. But then Harry Wilson's penalty gave them some hope. Sorba Thomas added another before setting up Brennan Johnson for the leveller. Belgium had a goal ruled out controversially by VAR, who concluded that the ball had gone out of play in the build-up. But with 2 minutes left, De Bruyne scored the winner.
Che Adams scored a hat-trick as Scotland beat Liechtenstein 4-0 to put Friday's home defeat to Iceland behind them. It's their last match before they begin their World Cup qualifying campaign against Denmark in September even. John Carver is to leave his position as the Scotland assistant manager to become the full-time boss of Polish side Lechia Gdansk. Carver was appointed Steve Clarke's assistant in August 2020.
As for England, Thomas Tuchel's not even tried to hide how unhappy he was with their performance against Andorra. So what does he want then from tonight's game with Senegal at the City Ground?
Well, he and his players watched that dramatic Nations League final between Portugal and Spain, and it's given him some ideas about what England should aspire to.
That's the standard, that's the level, that's the benchmark, and we will try to hunt that and we try to reach that, and I'm convinced that we have everything what it takes to match that when we play these teams, even if it maybe didn't look like that on Saturday between 6 and 8 o'clock. But in general, I'm absolutely convinced that we have everything what it takes to compete on exactly that level. I'm very impatient, which is not always a good thing. I'm always impatient because you step out into a stadium. I'm instantly like expecting something, of course, from myself and from the players. So and it will be the same for tomorrow. Of course, I'm impatient and we want to do better.
Bukayo Saka could give England a lift. Tuchel confirmed he will start tonight after missing the Andorra game. So this will be the first time Saka has played for England since the change of manager. Well, he's looking forward to seeing how he and the team can improve under Tuchel.
It's pretty much up to you to find a solution, find that creative spark. And we have more than enough of that in the team. It's just about finding the best way to get it out of everyone and using everyone's individual qualities to the best of their abilities. And the manager is definitely going to get the best out of us. It's all just a work in progress, and it's only the first few camps, so I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. I couldn't put a number on it off the top of my head, but I think we have more than enough world-class players, talents, experienced players. I think we have the right balance in this team. Like I said earlier, it's just about getting the best out of all of us, finding a way to gel in the right way, and taking that into the World Cup next year.
Senegal come into the game off a 1-1 draw with Ireland and Dublin. That extended their unbeaten run to 21 games, which goes back to September 2023. They're aware of what Tuchel said after England's performance against Andorra, and they are expecting a reaction.
I did see the game, absolutely, but we know that England are a quality team. Tuchel knows his players, he knows his squad. He'll know why he's angry and why he's not particularly pleased. But they're quite clearly a good team. I mean, I'm sure that tomorrow they're going to go out there a little bit wounded after what happened against Andorra. As far as we're concerned, we have to stay focused, and it's all about us preparing for our game tomorrow.
The third golf major of the year takes place this week, with Oakmont ready to host the 125th US Open.
Yeah, they all look very serious, don't they? And perhaps because it's widely regarded as the toughest venue for a US Open, perhaps don't expect low scores this week then, but can Rory McIlroy or Scottie Scheffler claim their second major win of the season?
Yeah, they know there's not going to be any low scores, don't they? That's why they're grimacing. World number 3 and last year's Open and PGA champion Xander Schauffele will be hoping that's not the case with the other two winning it, but he is relishing the challenge.
I think he just puts an emphasis on hitting the fairway and hitting greens. So if you're a premier ball striker, you'll be licking your chops. Look at it, as a fun challenge versus feeling like you're living a nightmare. Maybe I'm just sick and enjoy the challenge. something about it, playing really hard, and I think a good attitude goes a long way. So it's obviously a hard thing, easier said than done. Hard to keep a good attitude through the entire stretch of 72 holes.
You have to find the enjoyment. Yeah, it exists for sure. It's just you've got to kind of change the narrative and reframe it. So yeah, absolutely. I think challenging is what it is for sure. Yeah, and that's what you relish. So yeah, you've got to reframe how you grind it out. And I think if you sort of live and die by par, you're going to have a tough week. I just think you've got to kind of go with what the course gives you and add it up after 72.
Now, it's been 3 years since Sheffield's Matt Fitzpatrick lifted the US Open trophy.
An incredible fairway bunker shot on the 18th at Brookline in 2022 saw him win by 1 shot, but he's only won once on the PGA Tour since.
And Fitzpatrick spoke to Jamie Weir on the Sky Sports Golf podcast this week, which you can listen to now. He thinks the course at Oakmont could suit his style.
It requires more skill in a way to grind it out. I think I'm not saying it's super easy to go out there and shoot 40 under, because I've never done that either. But I think when it is tougher, I enjoy it a little bit more, because I feel like you say, it almost not plays into my hands, but just I feel like I'm used to that. I've grown up kind of playing that style of golf, I think, and normally when it's windy and firm, that's kind of when I feel like I'm kind of in a good spot.
World number 1 Scottie Scheffler finished second behind Fitzpatrick 3 years ago. He's still yet to win the US Open, though, but he does come into this week in outstanding form. Scheffler has won 3 of his last 4 tournaments, including the last major, the US PGA Championship last month. Well, there he was on the putting green at Oakmont yesterday, and you can watch his news conference tonight. We'll bring you that right here on Sky Sports News from 9 o'clock this evening. Our defending champion Bryson DeChambeau was also practicing on the putting green yesterday. He's looking to win a 3rd US Open title in 6 years. We can hear from him tonight too from 7 o'clock here on Sky Sports News.
Right, it is a deadline day. We are primarily talking about players on the move. But, Mark, we have an update on Thomas Frank potentially going to Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, small update. It's not done yet. Negotiations continue between the 2 football clubs. Yeah, so basically we know that Tottenham Hotspur, after sacking Ange Postecoglou earlier this summer, they are in the market for a new head coach. Our information is that they have one man and one man only at the top of their list. That's the Brentford boss, Thomas Frank. There's been a lot of talk on social media over the last 48 hours and so on and so forth. But we can just bring people up to date with the very latest, because there is so much information out there. It's important to try and get things accurate and right. So further talks are expected this morning between Tottenham Hotspur and Brentford. The key point here is compensation. Now, that's where there is a little bit of a grey area. The clubs did discuss what compensation could look like yesterday, and the negotiations will continue, but it's important to point out nothing has been agreed yet. One of the big problems is that Thomas Frank wants to take a number of his backroom team to Spurs from Brentford, and that centres around some of the negotiations. One of these, Justin Cochrane, who is also a part of Thomas Tuchel's England backroom team. It's expected that his compensation is around the £10 million mark, and he still has 2 years to run on his current Brentford contract. Sky Sports News reported immediately after Ange Postecoglou's sacking on Friday that Frank is the front runner to succeed him. So you get the feeling it's only a matter of time now before they find some common ground and they can get this one confirmed. But it's important to point out that despite all of the noise on social media, this is not agreed yet, and the conversations between the 2 football clubs continue.
Great.
Okay. Things progressing. Mark. Maybe we'll have some more news later on today. You never, ever know. Right. It appears that Jack Grealish's time at Manchester City could be coming to an end. Next, we'll take a look at where his future could lie.
OK, let's have a look at this morning's newspapers. A few interesting transfer stories that Mark's been having a look at. Should we start with Jack Grealish, because he's struggled for game time at Manchester City. So what are the papers saying?
It's won everything, hasn't it, at Manchester City? Been a huge part of what they've done in terms of the last 4 years. However, game time has not been great for Jack Grealish over the course of the last few weeks and months. And there's a big story on the back page of The Sun today, and it talks about potentially an ex-Manchester United manager coming in for a Manchester City star. Jack Grealish has been offered an Etihad escape route by ex-Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag. New Bayer Leverkusen manager Ten Hag is a huge admirer of Manchester City's £100 million outcast and views him as the perfect replacement for someone who may be heading to Liverpool, Florian Wirtz. Apparently, according to The Sun, Jack Grealish is available for £40 million, which sounds like good business to me for the 29-year-old. And it goes on to say, sources close to Grealish, who will be left out of City's Club World Cup squad, have claimed he is attracted with regards to playing abroad. That would be something he'd be open to. Maybe the Saudi Pro League, maybe a side in Germany or Europe. So definitely one to keep an eye on. He also wants to play games, get game time, off the back of what Thomas Tuchel said just the other day. He needs to be playing. He needs to get minutes. So therefore, could Bayer Leverkusen be a potential destination for Jack Grealish? Good story there on the back page of The Sun.
What about Michail Antonio? This is a slightly different story, isn't it? Because he hasn't played since December after sustaining that horrible broken leg in a car crash. His West Ham contract expires at the end of the month. What is happening with him then and West Ham? Is that likely to be extended? What do we know is going to happen?
We don't know a lot of detail at the moment, but like you say, as things stand, it certainly looks like Michail Antonio may be leaving West Ham. Now, this is a story in The Guardian, and it says Antonio nears exit with no agreements on a potential deal. Michail Antonio is likely to leave West Ham when his contract expires at the end of the month. West Ham have offered him a short-term deal on a reduced salary with further payments based on appearances. The 35-year-old, whose current wage is around £90,000 a week, wants a more guaranteed financial setup and a longer-term contract. So it finishes by saying the impasse means Antonio, who has scored 83 goals for West Ham, looks like he's moving towards an exit. That's according to Jacob Steinberg, who's written that story in The Guardian. So another one to keep an eye on, Michail Antonio. 35, like you say, horrendous accident. Hopefully he can get back out on a football pitch again and show us what he's all about, because he brings so much. And I also love his personality off the pitch as well, in the dressing room. Such a leader, such a character. Fingers crossed he can find the right solution for him and carry on playing football.
Yeah, let's hope so. It'd be great to see him back out there, wouldn't it? Now, Arsenal fans, they would have been concerned when they saw reports that Real Madrid might be interested in Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. What's the situation here? Do they need to be worried?
Do they need to be worried? Arsenal fans, calm down. Don't worry. No, because the Spanish newspaper Marca wrote a story yesterday saying that that Real Madrid were interested in Martin Zubimendi. But as far as the Athletic are concerned, Arsenal regard Martin Zubimendi's transfer as being done and signed. Real Sociedad have asked for the deal to be signed in July for accounting purposes, and Zubimendi is expected to link up with Arsenal for the start of pre-season. The Athletic's Real Madrid correspondent, Mario Cortegana, says Real Madrid like the player but did not pursue or actively work on recruiting him. So Arsenal fans, calm down. You're still going to get Zubimendi, according to The Athletic. It's all done and dusted, but purely for contractual reasons and financial reasons, they want to move the contract into a new accounting year in July. Okay. So
relax.
Calm down.
And breathe.
And breathe. Someone tells me you're an Arsenal fan, Matt. Are you breathing? Are you relaxed?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm relaxed. You've relaxed me, thank you. You stressed me out at the top of the 7 o'clock, but with that Sesko news, but I feel a lot better now.
We're good.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic.
Well done, Mark. All right, remember we have got a special transfer window countdown show for you from 5 o'clock this evening right up until the deadline. At 7 o'clock, Kaveh Solokol and Dharmesh Sheth will be joined by former West Ham striker Dean Ashton.
Now, Nottingham Forest have written to UEFA to express their concern over Crystal Palace participating in the Europa League, given the multi-club ownership rules.
Yeah, Palace Executive Chairman Steve Parish and co-owner John Textor attended a meeting with UEFA's club financial control body last Tuesday. Textor has a 43% stake in Palace and also owns Lyon, and they have also qualified for the European competition.
One person cannot have decisive influence over two clubs in the same UEFA competition. Now, there's a way round this. By March the 1st, which is the UEFA deadline, you can change the ownership structure of clubs to make sure that you comply with UEFA's rules. For instance, this is something that Nottingham Forest themselves did because the owner of Nottingham Forest also owns Olympiacos. And there was a possibility that they could both be in the Champions League. So he followed the rules and he did the right thing. Crystal Palace and Lyon did not stick to the letter of the law. And the reason they didn't stick to the letter of the law, they would say, is it was unexpected for us to be in the Europa League. UEFA asked Steve Parish, the executive chairman of Crystal Palace, and also John Textor to attend a meeting at their headquarters near Geneva in Nyon last Tuesday. And I think at that meeting, Steve Parish and John Textor made a pretty compelling case about why they should be allowed to play in the Europa League. And we're expecting them to come up with a decision by the end of the month. But obviously this is a very, very complicated case with a lot at stake for multiple parties.
Right, we understand further talks between Tottenham Hotspur and Brentford over Thomas Frank are expected this morning. There will be plenty more news on that and all the transfer news on Sky Sports News.